Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today we are making 3 easy chicken dinners that your family will love. Most of us have chicken in our freezer or chicken in our refrigerator, and I thought I would find a few unique chicken recipes that might just change things up for a weeknight. The first chicken dinner we're gonna be making is a honey hot chicken cutlet with a delicious slaw, like a coleslaw to go on the side. So we're gonna have heat, sweet, and yummy creamy crunch. And then the next recipe we're gonna be making is a chicken, tomato, and pesto orzo that I cannot wait to try. And the third one we're gonna be making is a copycat Costco chicken bacon ranch bake in the oven with an arugula salad to go on the side. So these are all going to be easy weeknight dinners that are gonna change things up when it comes to chicken dinners, that if you make them, your family will be asking for you to make them again. So the first one we're gonna start with is the honey hot chicken cutlet. The first thing we're gonna do is make a rub for our chicken cutlets. I have onion powder in my bowl. Next, I'm gonna add some basil salt that I made homemade. If you don't have that, just add salt and basil. Next, we have some fresh black pepper, some Italian seasoning, and of course, a good pinch of smoked paprika. And I'm gonna stir this together. I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more of that basil salt, and our rub is now done. So I'm gonna set this aside. The next thing we're gonna do is actually prepare our chicken cutlets. And I wanted to share this trick with you that so many of you guys have shared with me, is that to keep your cutting board from sliding around on your counter, put a damp, clean dishcloth underneath your cutting board, and that just helps prevent that kind of slippage that cutting boards like to do sometimes on counters. So I went ahead and did that today, and I have 4 chicken breasts here, which are pretty large, and we want a really thin, crispy cutlet. So what I'm gonna do is take a second to trim anything off that I wanna go ahead and trim off these chicken breasts. And then I'm going to slice my chicken breast in half to make it easier for when we actually take the meat tenderizer and flatten this chicken breast out even more. So here I have parchment paper, and I'm going to go ahead and get these chicken breasts in here. And I'm gonna use my meat tenderizer, but the flat side, and I'm gonna go ahead and pound these until they're a little bit thinner. It's getting closer. We want these thin for a couple reasons. We want them thin so they cook quickly and so that they cook evenly. You wanna make sure the thickness is about even. So that looks pretty good to me. Maybe I could thin this out a little bit right there, and then we're gonna call this good. Perfect. So as I finish my chicken cutlets, I will go ahead and get them on this plate, and then I will repeat this process 3 more times until we have all 4 of our chicken breasts sliced. I actually probably could open this parchment paper like this and just slice it right on there, being sure not to cut my parchment paper. Normally when I do this, I use a Ziploc bag, but this parchment paper is actually working a lot better. So I think moving forward, I will go ahead and use the parchment paper when pounding out my chicken breast. You can actually buy at the store, if you need to save yourself a little bit of time in the kitchen, chicken breasts that are already cut in half. This was a little bit smaller of a chicken breast, so it didn't take quite as long to tenderize it. So let me go ahead and do the same thing to these 2. Just like that, we have all of our chicken pieces nice and thin. Now that our chicken cutlets are prepped, we can actually make the dredge for the chicken cutlets. So I have 3 pie pans here. You could use plates or bowls, whatever you have, but I'm gonna use these because we are gonna make our 3-step dredging station in these pie pans. In baking dish 1, I'm gonna go ahead and add some flour. And this is going to be just a typical 3-step dredge, except we're gonna add some different things to it to make it just a little bit tastier. So the second one is going to be 2 eggs, along with about a tablespoon of hot sauce. And then the third one is going to be breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. Now, the recipe that I'm following calls for panko. I happen to have some homemade sourdough breadcrumbs, so I'm gonna use those instead because that will just be delicious. It didn't take very long for us to get our mise en place ready to make these spicy honey cutlets. So the next thing I'm gonna do is use my stainless steel pot to heat up quite a bit of oil, at least a good 1/2 inch of oil in this pot so that we can get our cutlets frying up. And I wanna go ahead and thank Maiden for sponsoring today's video. For the recipes today, I am gonna be using all Maiden pots and pans. I am using their stainless steel 5-clad pans. Not only is the 5-ply on the bottom of the pan, but it goes all the way up the sides of the pot. You all know how much I love stainless steel, and I love a high quality pot and pan, and Maiden does not disappoint. Not only are they used in home kitchens all around the world, but they are also used in Michelin star restaurants around the world as well, which I think is pretty incredible. I am gonna be using the Maiden 3.5 quart saute pan to make our cutlets in, and then in this 2-quart saucepan, we're gonna be making our hot honey sauce to drizzle on top of our chicken. The 5-ply stainless steel that goes throughout these pots helps with heat retention, and it helps with even cooking. Not only are the handles super comfortable and ergonomic, they're designed to not get hot. So when you are working on the stove, you can handle the handle without it transferring heat from the pan into the handle, which makes it very comfortable to use. So for our honey hot sauce, we're gonna add some honey to this pan. And I'm just gonna go ahead and get this ready while we wait for our oil to heat up. To that honey, I'm gonna add hot sauce. Now you could use any kind of hot sauce you like. This happens to be homemade. I'm just reusing this bottle. And we're gonna get that mixed in together. Maiden partners with multi-generational factories in Italy to create a high quality product that not only can withstand a high heat on the stove, but you can put these pans into the oven and they can withstand up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit in the oven. I love pans that can go from the stove into the oven. You see me do that all the time, especially ones that come with lids, so they become a super practical and functional piece of cookware in your kitchen. Maiden has a ton of different stainless steel pots and pans that would fit any need you might have in the kitchen. So I will put them down as the first link down in the description box. So if you are interested in a 5-ply, high quality stainless steel pan or pot, I will put them as the first link down in the description box. So now that our hot sauce is ready, let's go ahead and bread up some chicken because our oil is just about ready. Before we even got started, I prepped a cookie sheet with parchment paper and a cooling rack. So when the cutlets come out of the oven, we can just put them right on there and in the oven. I'm gonna preheat the oven to 200 degrees so that when they come out of the oil, we have a hot place to put them. So I'm gonna bring my dredging station over here so that it's closer to our hot oil. And what I'm gonna do is take our seasoning mixture and I'm gonna lightly season each cutlet. I'm gonna use all this seasoning mixture, so it's okay if I go back and forth a little bit. Now we're gonna take our seasoned chicken and put it into the flour. By seasoning the chicken itself and not just the flour, we can control how much seasoning actually goes into each piece of chicken, just a little bit more. Then into the egg mixture. Now into the breadcrumb Parmesan mixture. I'm gonna try to keep one hand for dry and one hand for wet. And I just learned this trick that if you take the back of a wooden spoon and it sizzles in the oil, your oil is ready. I'm gonna go ahead and get this in the oven, so as soon as those chicken cutlets come out, they can go directly on this sheet pan in the oven. So we're at temperature. I think I want it to be a little bit more golden brown on that side before we take it out, but we're up to proper temperature. Growing up, we never ate anything like this, and so anytime I make any sort of fried chicken or fried cutlet, it feels like a special occasion to me, and I cannot wait for you to see how these turned out because they are pretty darned incredible. While our last couple pieces of chicken are cooking up, we're gonna make our slaw. I'm doing myself a favor and I have a coleslaw bag from the store, so I don't need to cut the cabbage and carrots. I'm gonna make a creamy, kind of sweet coleslaw because the chicken is pretty spicy. So I've got some mayo in there. Just gonna add a little bit of black pepper, some of this amazing basil salt. If you don't have that, just add salt, that's fine. We're gonna make a classic coleslaw. 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and that's mayonnaise in there. I don't think I said I put mayonnaise in there first. Use whatever kind you like the best. And a tablespoon of sugar. Now we're gonna mix that up, give it a taste, and adjust seasonings as needed. I can hear my chicken over there. I need to go give it a look, see? Now that our chicken's done, I can get it out of the oven and get it plated. This smells so good. I cannot wait to dig into this. I'm just gonna arrange our chicken on this platter. I have one piece of chicken. I'm not gonna put our hot honey on because I think it might be a little hot for someone in our family. I cannot wait to dig into this one. So I've got the coleslaw here. I tasted it. It has a great sweetness to it. I wanted it to have a little bit of sweetness to counterbalance the crunch of the chicken. And I think I'm gonna do a coleslaw chicken bite. I like to have them combined together. This is incredible. If you had a bun and you wanted to make a spicy sweet sandwich and put this coleslaw on the top, that would be incredible. I'm gonna taste the chicken just by itself. So good. I wanna keep eating this, but we need to move on to the next recipe. It does not have too much spice to it. I was a little worried when I tasted the honey hot sauce just by itself, it would be too spicy, but this is perfect. I highly, highly recommend this recipe. The recipes will be linked down below if I forgot to mention that earlier. I'm gonna dish up a little dish for Josh so he can give this a taste test. And at the end, I'll have him rate his favorite recipes. And I think so far, we started out with a winner. Good sign, Josh is coming back. I just brought him a little bit and he's coming back for a little bit more, so.
Very tasty.
I didn't grow up with fried chicken of any kind. And so whenever I make this, it always feels really extravagant and I just really like it. There's a reason why fried chicken is so popular, because it's delicious. It's not too spicy for you?
No, not at all.
Not too spicy, he said. So now let's move on to the next recipe. The beauty of this recipe is it's all gonna be made in this one pan. So if you need a one pan dinner, this is your dinner recipe. Now I've got my basil salt here, but if you just have salt and Italian seasoning like I'm gonna put on in just a second, that would be just fine. Now I'm gonna add Italian seasoning. These are chicken thighs that I cut up into about 1/3 pieces. The recipe calls for chicken breast, but I like chicken thighs, so we're gonna use chicken thighs in this recipe. And then the last thing is some pepper. Our pan is nice and hot. So now I'm gonna take my chicken and put it seasoned side down, and then we'll season the other side of the chicken once it's in this pan. While our chicken is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and dice up just a few cherry tomatoes. This is really the only veggie prep we need to do for this recipe. That's probably enough tomatoes. And then while I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and open my orzo because we need 1 cup of orzo. One reason I love stainless steel so much is it does give you that crust that you want on the bottom of the pan, because we're gonna deglaze that with some chicken broth later. And that is gonna be the base for a really, really delicious creamy sauce that we're gonna make that's gonna go on top. Well, it's incorporated with the orzo and the chicken. Look at all that brown goodness that we got on the pan. So now we're gonna go ahead and take our chicken out, and we got good color on the chicken. I like using chicken thighs because they're more forgiving than chicken breast when it comes to overcooking. To that, I'm gonna add our 1 cup of orzo, and we're gonna toast that orzo in that little bit of olive oil that's left in the pan. My orzo has some browning to it. You can see the little pastas have some goldenness to them. So to my orzo, I have 1 little puck of frozen garlic. That's garlic that I just pureed up and froze so that when I need fresh garlic, I don't have to peel it every time. And I can see that my orzo is getting nice and toasty. So I'm gonna put half my cherry tomatoes in there now to kind of slow that cooking process down. And then I do want to deglaze my pan. And I had my jar opener somewhere, but I can't seem to find it. And that's okay, because I can just use a knife. And that's some homemade chicken broth. And I want to get this in there quickly. Whoop. So I can just deglaze the bottom of the pan. So anywhere where there was those brown bits that were stuck to the bottom of the pan, I'm going to use the liquid from the broth to scrape up the bits. This will not only impart a ton of flavor, but it'll help clean up later when we need to actually clean our pan. And our garlic is still in there, so that's going to thaw quickly. There it is. And that will just cook in this orzo and tomatoes. Now we're going to bring this up to temperature with some basil salt, red pepper flakes, just a couple of those, and some black pepper. This is halfway done, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my chicken back in here so it can warm through. It's already fully cooked. This is why I like chicken thighs, because they're so much more forgiving than chicken breasts when it comes to something like this. I'm also going to add my cream at this point. That's going to add some good sweetness. This is almost done, so I'm going to add the rest of our tomatoes. So we're going to have some that have stewed down and some that are a little bit fresher. So they'll just be a little bit different texture and flavor with the two different tomatoes. And to make this an all-in-one meal, we are going to add some spinach to it. What I like to do with my spinach is buy fresh spinach, like one of those big containers. There's no way we can ever get through one of those before they go bad. So then I just take those leaves, throw them in a bag, or a lot of times I'll keep them in the container and put the container in the freezer. And then you have these beautiful frozen spinach leaves that aren't one big clump like when you buy the frozen spinach. And I'm just gonna put a couple handfuls of this in there. Maybe I'll put the rest of this bag in there. And we're gonna stir that in. The spinach is only gonna take maybe 30 seconds to cook through. The biggest thing I'm looking for is to make sure that orzo is nice and soft. This looks so yummy. Orzo is one of my new favorite pastas because it cooks up so quickly and you can just change up the flavor profile so much. And I'm going to taste for seasoning, for salt and pepper, and to see if our orzo pasta is done. It's not quite done. So I'm gonna turn the heat back up. And I'm gonna actually put the lid on this. And we'll let that cook for another 3 or 4 minutes until the orzo's done. Our orzo chicken is done. I just topped it with quite a bit of Parmesan cheese and parsley and chives. So now it's time to go ahead and give this a try. So we're gonna dish up a little bit, get a piece of chicken, some orzo, tomato, and spinach. I love a one-pot wonder, and that's exactly what this is. You could even make this vegetarian. I know we're making chicken dishes today, but if you want to make it vegetarian, just leave the chicken out and it would be really delicious just like that. It's savory, yet bright because of the tomato, and a little bit of sweetness because of the cream. Hard to go wrong with these flavors. The last 2 dinners we have made have been on the stove. The final dinner we're gonna make is in the oven. I have my oven preheated to 415 degrees, and we are gonna get a silicone mat out so that we can roll our pizza dough out. So I already made one batch of pizza dough. Let me bring you back and show you how I made one batch of pizza dough plus the most incredible homemade ranch dressing I have ever had. So delicious. So if you want to see how to make those, I will show you right now. For the pizza dough, you could just use store-bought if you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and make it. I've got 1 1/3 cup water going into my mixer. It's just easier for me to make it in the mixer, so that's what I'm gonna do. To that, I'm gonna add the equivalent of 1 packet of Active Dry, which that conversion is 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, and then 1 tablespoon of sugar. And I have a teaspoon here, so I'm gonna go ahead and put 3 of these. I'm gonna turn that on and mix that. I'm gonna let that sit and let the yeast kind of dissolve into the water and start to proof. Normally I use all-purpose flour when I make pizza dough, but I'm falling in love with bread dough, or not bread dough, bread flour. So I'm going to use bread flour in this, and I think that will help create a stronger dough because it has more protein in it, which will hold up to these pockets that we're gonna be making, or chicken bakes. So I have 3 1/2 cups of flour in there. I'm gonna put 2 tablespoons of a good olive oil and 1 teaspoon of salt. And now we'll get this mixing. This has been kneading for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the kneading paddle. I'm gonna go ahead and just move this dough a little bit so it fits a little better in here as it rises. And in about an hour or so, we'll make our chicken bacon ranch copycat bakes. So I'm just gonna put the lid back on and let it rise right in the mixer. I made this ranch dressing the first thing I did this day just because of how my day worked out. It was really easy just to whip this up and then get going with the other recipes. And I'm glad I did because it actually set up pretty well. And because we're going to be using this kind of as a sauce, it worked out perfectly. We are going to use equal parts mayonnaise, sour cream, and buttermilk. Real buttermilk, not milk that I put lemon juice in. I went ahead and used the real buttermilk, but in a pinch you could just use some half and half or heavy cream or even whole milk and then just add a little extra lemon juice when it comes to the lemon part, and it would be just as delicious. Now I am going to be using fresh herbs for this because I love cooking with fresh herbs, and this is a pretty decadent and delicious homemade ranch dressing, but if you only have dried herbs, it's going to be really good as well. So the herbs that I have here are chives, parsley, and dill. Dill is really what gives it that ranch flavor, and cooking with fresh dill I think is such a treat, and it's one of my favorite things to cook with. Now I'm just going to chop this up really well. I've already washed them, and once I get them chopped, I did, because this was earlier in the day, I put them in little containers so that whatever I didn't end up using for this dressing I could use in some of the other dishes and just have fresh herbs prepped. I used about a tablespoon of parsley and chives and dill in this ranch dressing. And if you didn't want to go through the effort of making homemade ranch dressing for these chicken bacon ranch pockets, then just use whatever bottled stuff you have. When I was looking for recipes for this, not for the ranch dressing in particular, but for the actual chicken bacon ranch, like Costco copycat, half the recipes said that it was ranch dressing and half the recipes said it was Caesar dressing. So I just, did eeny, meeny, miny, mo and picked ranch dressing. And I think after tasting it that the Costco ones have more of a Caesar dressing in it. And so we're kind of making chicken bacon ranch bakes that turn out absolutely incredible. So here's our ranch dressing. When I was looking for recipes to make this, all the recipes just said use store-bought pizza dough, which would work just fine. But I happen to have all the ingredients to make this, so I figured I might as well go ahead and just make a batch of homemade dough. And this dough is looking beautiful. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this dough out of my mixer now and onto my silicone mat. Now I'm not sure how many this should make with this one ball of dough. Let me reread the recipe. I can't find it. So what I think I'm gonna do is make 5. So I'm gonna roll this into a log so that I have an easier time let's see. I feel like if I make them into 4, they'll be too big. And if I make them into 6, they'll be too small. So I have 938 grams of dough. Hey Siri, what is 938 divided by 5? 187.6 grams. So let's see how close I was on that. 175, so it's very close. 185, so that's close enough. Okay, these are all within about 5 grams of each other. Do I normally do that? No, normally I would just eyeball it. But I was kind of curious because I see recipes all the time that say you can, put the dough on the scale and divide it by the number you want. And I've never done it before, so that was kind of a fun thing to do. Okay, so now we need to roll this out pretty thin because I just worked with it. The gluten is kind of tight a little bit. So I might have to work with one, set this one aside, grab another one. I am glad that I used the bread flour because I can already tell that this is a stronger dough because of it. I'm trying to roll these kind of into a rectangle, but I'm not doing the best job. That's fine. Probably could have got away with doing 6 or making 6, but we're gonna make 5 and it's gonna be delicious. When I was researching recipes on this, a lot of them called for ranch and a lot of them called for Caesar dressing. So I'm sure I could have gone on Costco's website to look at the ingredients in the chicken bakes to see if it's ranch dressing or chicken, or not chicken, but ranch or Caesar. I originally had a Caesar dressing recipe printed, but then I decided to go with ranch instead. So now that I've started each one of these, I'm gonna go back to my original one because the gluten has been able to relax just a little bit. Seems like a good size. What I did to make this recipe extremely easy is I had some pre-cooked bacon in my freezer. I like to keep pre-cooked bacon in my freezer because all you have to do to get it to be crispy again is either throw it in the air fryer or throw it in the microwave for a minute and you've got crispy bacon. So that's what I did. I also bought a rotisserie chicken yesterday and I pulled the meat off the bones. So we've got chicken and I shredded up earlier some mozzarella cheese. So this is going to come together quickly once I chop up my bacon. So now we have our piece of dough here that's properly rolled out. I also have a cookie sheet lined with parchment. And I think what I'm gonna do is slide that right there. I'm gonna start by taking my homemade branch. You can see how beautiful and thick that is. Just a spoonful. I'm gonna have extra, which is awesome, because we can use this for dressing for the week. Now I'm gonna add some chicken. Mozzarella. Bacon. And now I have to figure out how I'm going to close this. Piece of bacon on there. So we have our 5 pockets here now. So what I'm going to do on the top, because this is what most of the recipes say to do, is to actually take a little bit of the dressing and put that on the top. So instead of like an egg wash, which is what I would normally do, I'm going to put a little bit of our homemade dressing. Josh just came in here and tasted this dressing because I told him I think it was the best ranch I've ever eaten, and he agreed. It smells so good. Fresh dill is one of my favorite things to cook with, and fresh cilantro. I did not bring Josh a taste test. He just came in here and took a little sample of that, and he said it was incredible. So I'm really excited for him to try this last one so we can rate which ones he thinks is his favorite. So now we've got our pizza pockets going in. It's 415 degrees. I think this is gonna take at least 20 minutes. We are going to make an arugula tomato parmesan salad to go along with these chicken bakes. And this could not be any easier. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ingredients if you account salt as an ingredient. In my salad bowl, I'm gonna go ahead and put some arugula. We love the taste of arugula. It's peppery, it's fresh, it's crunchy, and it makes a delicious topping for pizza too. If you make something very similar to this and add it on pizza, it's incredible. So now I'm gonna add my olive oil next, and I'm adding the olive oil because arugula is a little bit of a tender vegetable. If I was doing kale, I would add my acid first, like lemon juice or vinegar. But because this is a tender veggie, I'm gonna go ahead and add the olive oil first. This is a high quality olive oil that tastes really, really good. When you're making a salad, you want a good olive oil. I'm gonna mix that together, and then I'm gonna take the juice of half of a lemon, probably put about half of this, so about 1/4 of a lemon's worth of juice on there. And that goes next. I'm gonna use my basil salt, sprinkle that on there. A good amount of Parmesan cheese. Now I have some cherry tomatoes, and I'm just gonna halve them, and I think the cherry tomato burst of brightness is gonna go really, really well with the very savory pizza pocket that we're making, our chicken bacon ranch bake. I'm gonna go pretty heavy on the tomato because it's almost gonna be a tomato and arugula salad. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be so good. Look at all that Parmesan cheese with the tomatoes and the pepperiness of the arugula. Yum. I just tasted this and it is incredible. It tastes almost like a quick version of a Caesar dressing just because of the lemon juice and a lot of Parmesan cheese. If you want something pretty incredible to put on a cheese pizza, pepperoni pizza, or whatever it is, have your pizza come out of the oven and then take this salad and plop it right on top. Drizzle some balsamic vinegar on the top of that. Incredible. But this is gonna be delicious as a side with our chicken bacon ranch bakes. So while this is baking, because I've got another, look how big they puffed up. I wasn't expecting them to puff up so big. But while these are baking, I'm gonna go ahead and finish tidying up the kitchen. One thing I did about 4 or 5 minutes ago is I put some more of that mozzarella cheese on the top of our bakes. And I'm glad I did. Oh my goodness, it looks like 2 of them stuck together. That's no problem at all. Look at those. Look at how beautiful those are. I'm very glad I decided to put the little bit of cheese on top. We're gonna let these cool and then we're gonna cut into them and see how delicious they are. I can't wait any longer. It is time to cut into these chicken bacon ranches that looks beautiful on the bottom, nice and fully cooked through. I'm just gonna cut it in half so we can see what the inside looks like. Oh my goodness, look at that. It's very, very hot. It's fully cooked. I actually just went and had Josh taste this before I did because I wanted him to rank what his favorites were. And he tried the arugula salad and he said, that is so good. And it is so good. It's just simple, delicious, peppery, and yummy. Now it's time for me to try this. I think now that I'm tasting this, I'm thinking the Costco ones might be Caesar dressing. Like I said, half of them said ranch, half of them said Caesar. I was kind of going for a copycat recipe. This is fantastic, but now I'm gonna try it with Caesar dressing and still put the bacon and the chicken, the dressing, and the cheese. This is phenomenal. Look at how crunchy that is on the bottom. The dough is fully cooked through. I asked Josh to rank them from what his favorite was, like what would he really want me to make again? He said, hands down, the honey chicken one is his favorite. And then he said it was kind of a toss-up because he was kind of getting full by the time he tasted the chicken bake. He had already eaten the honey chicken and gone back for seconds. And then he had the orzo and he really liked the orzo and he had seconds on that. So he only tried the chicken bake and he ranked them the honey, hot chicken, orzo, and then the chicken bake. And he said, I think I only ranked it the chicken bake last just because he was so full, but he said they all were great and he would be happy if I made any of them again. So if you're looking for a good chicken recipe because you have chicken in the fridge that's gonna go bad, or you have chicken in the freezer and you're just not sure what to make and you wanna make something a little bit different, these recipes will be linked down below for you. If you are new, thank you for being here for the first time. If you're returning, thanks again for being here. I appreciate every single one of you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. I want to thank Maiden for sponsoring today's video. There will be a link down in the description box for them if you're interested in some really high quality, beautiful stainless steel pots and pans. And if you're new, please consider subscribing. If you enjoyed this, I have tons of videos where we make all sorts of different things. So I will pop a couple other fun cooking videos, recipe inspiration videos right here. You can go enjoy between now and the next upload. I hope you're having a fantastic day and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.